Hello, I'm Mike Troy, editor of Retail Leader. I'm here in Austin, Texas at the Revionics Insight conference with Cheryl Sullivan, Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer, and we're going to talk a little bit about the event, who's here, what some of the things you're looking to accomplish, all of those type of things. One of the things I noticed that you said at the start is that 50% of the people that are here this year are first-timers. Why do you think that is? What's going on in the world of price optimization? There's so much interest.
Yeah, it's a combination. Well, one, we have more customers, and so people from the new customers since last year are obviously here. A lot of times it's the same customer, but just different people that they're bringing in or switching out. I also think that there is a high turn in retail when it comes to employees. So we see a turn quite often. But I attribute most of it to the fact that we just are growing as a company and we're getting more customers.
And so this whole event is your baby. It's been a lot of favorable comments from people that I've talked to here.
Yeah.
When you were creating the structure and the theme and the all of those sort of event details, what were you looking to impart to an attendee?
Yeah, so every year we try to consider what's going on in retail. What's their pain point, what's happening. Last year it was about becoming relevant. Retailers are transforming into different formats. You've got to change your business and be relevant. This year, it's really so much disruption going on that if you got the digital explosion, you got this shopper who has changed from ever before, super price sensitive, and now it creates all these challenges for retailers. And so it really has got to the point that they have to transform. They have to embrace data, they have to embrace science, and they have to transform. And so that's really how we come up with the theme of the conference.
Transform.
Transforming retail.
Transforming retail, which you could make a case that could be a theme next year and the year after and the year after.
I'd even say, becoming relevant is still a theme.
Yeah.
Some of these don't go away. Retail's tough. It's getting tougher every year.
The other slogan that you mentioned, the predictive, prescriptive, and profitable.
Yeah.
Is that a Revionics specific slogan? Or
yes, that's a Revionics, and there's a big difference because there used to be just data analytics, and what data analytics gave you is it mined historical data and it gave you insight. And then you get into the predictive piece, which says, okay, I'm going to mine it and I'm going to forecast and predict what's going to happen. And really what we do is we bring in the machine learning science, so we get prescriptive. So we operationalize that. It's one thing to have those insights, it's one thing for you to know what might happen, but tell me what to do. So it's really about being prescriptive. And then what we do is we help retailers get their pricing, their promotions right, but a way that they're still profitable.
Okay, to better use the information.
Better use the information, so that's where the profitable retail
So your
comes in.
CEO, after you kicked things off this morning, Mark Hafner, talked about what was it, fair and optimal, but fair.
Right.
What does that mean? What was the point he was trying to make?
Yeah, so the point he was making, and what also came out of the Forrester study that we commissioned, was shoppers don't expect the lowest price. They don't even buy at the lowest price. Only 17% buy at the lowest price. What they're wanting is a fair price, the price that they're willing to pay. And what happens is when retailers still are going with the gut feel or the spreadsheets or what that might be, the pricing is arbitrary, and they don't like that. That's why 78% of the shoppers said they trust the science more than they do the retailer to get the price right, because it will come up with the fair price. But what it does is it comes up with a fair price while also making sure that the retailer is profitable.
You mentioned spreadsheets, and I've heard a few folks talk on panels when they're not that far removed from the days of using spreadsheets. This is still a fairly emerging field, dynamic pricing, that whole area. You and I have talked before about some of the myths about dynamic pricing, what it is, what it isn't, how it works. Can you set the record straight a little bit there on what it is?
So to set the record straight on the spreadsheet, so price optimization has been around for a long time. But it's been considered a luxury and people weren't comfortable with it. And some of the earlier technologies that came out, had a lot of hurdles, such as no transparency into why the science was making the recommendation. The science wasn't productized, so you needed statisticians to run it. So there was a lot of reasons that didn't work. We have since evolved, so we're really what we call the second generation, where we have removed those hurdles so that now they embrace it, they adopt it. But a lot of retailers still are struggling, some because they were burnt by the earlier types of technology. Others, they just didn't want to get off their spreadsheets. And I think what we said today in the session was, price optimization or even using science is no longer a luxury.
Right.
It's a need to have. You must have it.
So dynamic pricing is a hot topic. There's a lot of perceptions, misperceptions about what it is, what it isn't. Can you set the record straight a little bit there about what some of the common misperceptions are?
Yeah, there's a lot of people's views around dynamic pricing. Dynamic pricing really means to Revionics, and what we do for our customers is it's about being able to change the price at the right time. So it doesn't mean every single price in a retailer's store or online is going to change, every few minutes. What it means is that you have the science and technology that is able to monitor the market, whether it's online, whether it's in the brick and mortar store, look for shifts in the market and know when it's time to make a price change. And then have the system automatically do that.
Yeah.
So it's about, instead of having a person say, I accept that price change, let's execute it, it's about the system saying, just making the price change when it's necessary, but staying within the guardrails of what a retailer is comfortable with. And if it goes outside those guardrails, then it kicks it out and it's handled by exception management.
I think that was came out in one of the panels where the operators were talking. The concern is among the operators is that they're going to have to. They hear dynamic pricing,
Yes.
and they're the labor model is such. They think they're going to be constantly changing shelf tags,
Yeah.
and that isn't really how it works.
No, in fact, ESLs, ESL's been around for a long time, but there really hasn't been a strong ROI till now. We have a retailer that changes prices using ESLs in their brick and mortar store every night.
I haven't heard ESLs mentioned much here. What's the adoption look like there? Are we going to get there at some point?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a very rapid adoption. I think as retailers start recognizing that they have the ability to take more price changes. So when we optimize for retailer, we're optimizing every single item in every single store every day, whatever frequency they want. Unfortunately, without ESLs, they can only take so many. So we rank it. Even though we've done every single one in their assortment, we rank it for if you can only take 50, these are the 50 to take. So all the rest have been optimized, probably need to be changed, but they can't tap into it. So ESLs is going to allow them to grab the rest of that money left on the table.
So if you think about restaurants, like if we go out to eat tonight and we get to the restaurant before a certain time, people are okay with paying less, and the people that go later are okay with paying more. Why is it in a retail environment with a shelf label, if the retailer wanted to change price, if you're going to buy products before noon, or this, but it seems to be there's sort of this notion that no, you can't do that. They've got to be the same price.
So there's well, beer's a good example, right? Came out of Miller a years back. And
Miller, the beer company?
Miller Brewing.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we always said, beer, midday has one price, but after 10 o'clock, it has a completely different role that it plays. But back then we didn't have any of these things. So there is that. So what we're about is we enable it. If they want to, and that's their strategy, and it makes sense, I think the makes sense part needs to really be thoroughly thought through. They can do it. But I think also a lot of it is really, most retailers are at night, unless we have some pure play online, so you heard one today.
Right.
They're doing it daily, but they're not doing multiple times during
So
the day.
omni-channel chain,
Yeah.
I sell online, I sell in stores, I accept returns, I ship from stores. Do I have to think about this differently? The
For
dynamic,
pricing?
I mean,
So
doesn't the customer expect the price to be the same?
no, they don't. Interestingly, one of the things that came back in the Forrester study, because there is this perception, it's been another myth in the industry, is that you've got to, how do I keep my prices the same in store and online when I got to change frequently? How do I do it in the store? In reality, the study came back, and out of every single category, all of them, they expected it to be cheaper online, with the exception of grocery, which they expected it to be the same or a little bit less in the store.
How does store experience factor into people's perceptions of price? Like if you go to a store that's nicer, cleaner, more service, do I expect to pay more there, even if it's the same item? I haven't heard that come up so much about the role of store experience in dynamic pricing.
So there's a lot of talk about experience. One of the things that just came out of the second study that we commissioned Forrester to do, we asked shoppers across all these different types of retailers, what's the number one driver for you to go to that store and purchase? Is it price? Is it value? Is it experience? Is it speed? And out of every single vertical, it was price and value. So I'm not sure the
Where
experience
fits in.
fits in, and it was substantially lower than the other two.
I think but the presenter also made the case that that's kind of what people say. So sometimes what people say in their actual behavior, there can be a little...
True. So the difference is shoppers say one thing, science picks up another.
Yeah. All right.
And that's where we come in.
All right. Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.